Greg Bryant here from WRTI, Philadelphia. Excited to be with Bill Summers, and we may have someone else joining us. We won't give it away just right now, but I'm really excited because we here in Philadelphia will welcome the Headhunters on February 11th at Brooklyn Bowl, Philadelphia. And first of all, congratulations on your legacy, 50 years and a brand new record, Speakers in the House. Congratulations, Mr. Bill.
Yeah, well, I guess we should be congratulating Bill on getting up this morning because every day is a new day, a new journey.
Indeed,
So,
indeed, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been here. I'm here. I'll be celebrating my 75th birthday in about 5 or 6 months. So
Wow, congrats, man. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think it's awesome too.
Indeed, indeed.
I'm like, whoa! You know, when you make 50, that's a milestone. That's a half of a century.
That's right.
And the next one is 75, which is another quarter century.
Indeed.
So I'm literally in the fourth quarter, coming up into the fourth quarter. Hopefully I'll get overtime, you know.
Hey, that's right. That's what we're going to put our energy out for.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think I'll make it. I think it's okay.
Indeed. Indeed. Tell me this. How did you get to the Bay Area in the early 70s? I hear a lot of different stories, but I want to hear it from you. I know.
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
You know, in 10 words or less, what did you hear? I mean, was it something spectacular or something mundane?
Well, it was probably in the middle. I hear ethnomusicology, studying African rhythms from West Africa, Central Africa, but I never exactly got the full story on like how you got there.
Let's cut to the chase then. I you know, unbeknownst to many, Bill holds no degrees, okay? I don't even have a high school diploma. All right, let's get that. You know, the ethnomusicology part, I'll accept all that because knowledge and paper degrees aren't really graduation. Not really. That's some bullshit. You know, hard work and really studying, you know, a lot of people buy their degree. They pay people off to get it. So it's not really, I don't put that much validity in it. But yeah, how did I get there? I got to California in a very unusual way. I quit high school in the 12th grade because it was bullshit to me. I just couldn't take any more of the bullshit. And I went to work at Ford Motor Company. My father, I got home, he said, well, I guess you're going to get a job. That was the first thing he said when I told him I quit. So he continued reading his paper, and I went to work at Ford Motor Company. To make a long story short, I quit that job because it taught me truly what slavery was. When I would get into the job, it was dark. When I got out, it was dark. And all I heard was drills and bits and smell paint and oil all day. I couldn't deal with it. So I got another job, a little bit more palatable for my taste, which was I got a job as a busboy at Detroit Racecourse. They call it DRC. Now, to cut to the chase so we can get on with this, because that story, I could stretch it out forever. There was a guy in the bathroom that took bets for employees, because as an employee, I could not go to the window and place a bet. This guy he worked in the bathroom shining shoes. He was not an official employee. He was a bookie. He was the numbers man. He was the guy. I didn't know he was filthy rich. I didn't know he was a millionaire until later on when I found out that, well, everybody in the racetrack would go to this guy to place a bet. If they won or lost, he got some money, you know? So he was a nice guy. And one day I bet on what's called a daily double. You had to win 2 races. Your horse had to come in number 1 in 2 separate races. That's very difficult. So it's difficult winning 1 race. So that particular day, I won the daily double. I threw 50 dishes up in the air. I flipped off everybody that was calling me boy and telling me to go get cigarettes and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even pick up my check. I left the racetrack. I bought a round trip ticket from Detroit to San Francisco and back. When I got to San Francisco, I got off the airplane, literally looked up, saw the hills, saw the San Francisco hills, the Oakland hills, the bay, and everything looked like Disneyland. I had arrived at heaven, and I was not leaving. Okay, I wound up staying in the Bay Area, and I got a job at a music store, and then I was admitted into a junior college because my uncle told me, said, "Man, you can get into school, and if you're a resident of California, you can go to college free." I said, "You got to be kidding." So I passed the test. I got into Merritt Junior College. I went to school with Bobby Seale and Huey Newton, and I knew people like Eldridge Cleaver and Bob. I knew people. I learned a lot about the Black experience. I had a great grade point average. I applied for UC Berkeley for the next year and got accepted. That's where I met Herbie Hancock. It was just, if I wouldn't have quit school, I would have never met Herbie. I would have never met Quincy Jones. That would have never happened. So therefore, all you people out there who are suffering because from self-esteem, from lack of esteem or whatever, because you've been beat down, because you didn't get the degree, to hell with the degree. Do your thing. You can get there. God doesn't judge you by your degree.
Words of wisdom from Mr. Bill Summers. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
I don't know how wise it is, but it's true.
Hey, it got you to where you are. And I'm
great. Michael, I'll see my friend Michael Clark here.
There he is. There he is. Mr. Mike, I know you had the blues experience. You got to play with both Alberts and Jimmy Reed and a who's who of the Cats. Tell me about coming up on the University of the Streets and what that added to your improvisational acumen, if it influenced that at all.
Yeah, well, first of all, my father took me to nightclubs as a child to play jazz. I wasn't thinking about blues or funk. And so my childhood, I came up in nightclubs. We go 2 and 3 nights a week, and then he would pay the band director or the drummer, buy him a drink in those days, or give him $5, whatever the case may be, and let my son play. And I was a good drummer at 5 and 6 years old. Like I could play like Gene Krupa. I don't know if I'm not saying I could play that good, but I could do the tom thing, boom, bum, down, and my father also was a party man, so he played jazz records, Count Basie, Wynonie Harris, Louis Prima, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, Gene Krupa, all that, all the time, because his boys were over at the crib all the time, and so and there was always a drum set there, so this was an unavoidable karmic death. So I set out to be a jazz drummer. But I could play, most of the jazz drummers, when they were asked to play James Brown beats, they would sound like they were playing with Horace Silver because they weren't from that generation. And I was peeping James Brown and those cats, Wilson Pickett, real heavy. So I got my James Brown thing down. I didn't even have to shed it. I could do it instantaneously. I was like, oh yeah, I think like this kind of too. And then I would watch some of the drummers, and I'd be like, okay, I think I can do that. And then I started getting those calls. So I moved to Texas to hang with my pops when I got out of high school. He had moved to Texas, and I got a gig in this club called the Tracer Club in Fort Worth, Texas. And that's where I played with Jimmy Reed, Jimmy Hughes, O.C. Smith. I can't even think of them all. Sam and Dave, this one, that one, and the other one. And I was just a house drummer, so I wasn't in these cats' band. But from that, Texas was a blues town, not a jazz town. I was trying to hustle jazz gigs, but I had a good shuffle. made sure of that. And so I got calls to play with, both of the Alberts, Freddie King too. I played Hideaway, Sensation, Just Pickin', San Jose, all that shit. Excuse my French. And so I got a degree accidentally in like some type of blues and funk understand, and it stayed with me. And then I moved back to California, and I got a 3 night a week organ gig. My gig. I walked into a bar at 20 years old to have a beer. It was hot out. And I didn't even have I wasn't 21, but they didn't ask me for an ID. And so the guy said, "You talk like a musician." And I said, "Well, I am." And he said, "Do you have a band?" And I lied and said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, can you start this week?" So I had that gig for 4 years, an organ trio with a Sunday session. So that's how I met Paul Jackson. And this walked in one night. I'll try to make this short so I don't bogart the whole video. But this guy walked in and he's staring at everything I do. And I'm like, damn, he's a drummer and he's making me nervous. So I went over to his table and I said, "I know you're a musician. What do you play?" And he didn't tell me he played bass. He said, "I played B3. I said, "Well, why don't you come up and sit in?" And he did. And he turned it out. He sang the blues and blasted off on the organ and played a hell of a bass line. So I really liked him a lot. I went, "Oh, this cat, man, this is perfect." So then he gave me his card and I gave him my card. And that night when I got home to my crib in Oakland, there was a car in my driveway, a little car, a Morris Minor, a blue Morris Minor. And this big dude gets out and it's Paul Jackson, the guy from the gig. And he had some African hashish and a bottle of wine. And I said, "Come on in." That's it, Jack.
That's something else, man.
You know the rest.
Indeed.
The rest is history.
That's right. That's right. So I told Mr. Summers this, but Mr. Clark, I first encountered you guys very young, 3 years old. I had a Fisher Price turntable. My dad let me borrow his records, and the first sounds I actually remember are you guys. I learned to read off the back of Thrust and Headhunters. My mom would help me sound out the words as I was ingesting all this good stuff. So a tune like your new album, Over the Bar, that concept is kind of in my heart, in my soul. But take me back to the 70s in the Bay, and you guys, Mr. Bill and Mr. Mike, are trying and with Paul, trying these just funky, happening linear things. But is there a learning curve? Are the dancers getting it right away? Are the musicians? Tell me about how that was first received.
Bill, you go ahead, man. I'll chime in. I'd like to.
Me and Michael, I look at Michael as a professor of rhythm. He's a learned man. He's a wise man. He's like Yodo of the drums. You know what I mean? And, literally, you have these people who are like gurus, and and the knowledge that is required, say, to do what Michael does, it doesn't come easily. You know what I'm saying? You learn it in the most unlikely places. So I'll tell you something. The whole Bay Area. I mean, I came out of Detroit. I live 8 blocks from Motown.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew R&B because I came from Motown, and I studied piano there for 10 years in the conservatory. Although I didn't wind up being a pianist, I got my background in that. So I had the advantage of having a formal musical education at a conservatory, and at the same time being able to go and explore the sounds of the Temptations and Smokey Robinson and the Vandellas and any host of, the Temptations. I mean, it just went on and on and on and on and on. It was a constant thing in Detroit. So getting out of Detroit, and I guess one of the most remarkable influences on my life was Ricky Ricardo and I Love Lucy.
Mm.
And I'm gonna tell you why, because Ricky would come on and say, "Baba Lou, Baba Lou." No, that's not Spanish. And that damn show ain't Spanish. I know that. I knew that from the beginning. And it really intrigued me. What is he saying? And that launched me on to a career where I picked up my African heritage of percussion and instruments. That's where that was one of the sparks, because I didn't know, I couldn't name African Chopin or Tchaikovsky. I couldn't name a Black man or woman that was on the level of Beethoven according to European tradition. Okay, so I'm learning everybody else's shit but my own.
Mm.
And I found out that Baba Lou meant father, owner of the world.
Okay.
And it's African. It's Yoruba. It's from the Yoruba language. So that's a revelation in itself that I said, you got to be kidding. You mean there are African saints? Yeah, sure they are. And there's African history and African music and African food and African dance and African everything. In fact, I found out that every instrument category of instrument on the planet, according to Europeans and Asians, is Africans. They created the flute, the harp, the lyre, the balafon or the xylophone. I mean, they gave the violin, bowed instruments. All of that came out of Africa first and developed in these other areas of the world. So, hey, I'm privileged and honored just to be living, and that I freed myself from the need to be free. Okay, I freed myself from the need to even be free, and I got that from George Clinton. He said, what's dormant in the cocoon is not dead, like a caterpillar crawling 9,000 miles from the pyramid to the project. Smoking the Mayflower like a butterfly. Now that's knowledge like crazy. That's yes, George Clinton, okay?
Yeah, I love it. What about you, Mike?
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, there ain't much I can add to that, bro. Come on. Dog, you just said a mouthful, Bill Summers. You said that pretty much covers all the interviews over as far as I'm concerned. Oh my goodness. What was the question? I just got a history lesson. No.
Yeah, I did too. I guess were the people reticent towards the new funk that you guys were laying down, or did they get it right away?
Well, I was on another hey, Bill, you remember an organ player named Jimmy Ed?
No.
And I might add that Linda
I remember John Turk. He played trumpet.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Linda Tillery, by the way, is in New York right now doing a play.
Yeah, you told me about that yesterday.
Yeah. So, sorry, a little side note there.
No, it's okay. Linda, get it.
But I was on this organ gig, and there was a singer that played. It was mostly like kind of Jimmy Smith kind of stuff, and jazz, and some shuffle blues, and a little bit of funk. So the singer played tambourine when she wasn't singing, and the singer and the organ player kind of were going back and forth. They were kind of like having a vibe. So finally, it came to a head, and she stormed off the gig one night, and there was no tambourine. We're playing Mercy, Mercy, Cannonball.
Joe Zawinul wrote that. He was in the Cannonballs band, but Joe wrote that.
Yes, he did. And I used to play it regular, like da-da, boom, boom, pap, right? Mm-hmm. So now there's no tambourine, and I'm missing it. So I say, and Jimmy Ed on organ is like, yeah, and people start moving out onto the dance floor, and they're moving. And I thought, shit, I got them. Look at this. And then my creative mind from being a jazz junkie, a jazz. I'm not a junkie.
You are. You're a jazz junkie.
Well, I'm a TV series junkie, but anyway, so I started dividing the thing. Like instead of playing the ghost notes in one hand and keeping the regular hi-hat, I started playing a couple of notes on the hi-hat and a couple on the snare and one on the foot. I took Philly Joe Jones, Elvin Jones, Tony, little bits and pieces out of their big stuff and made it little stuff and made beats out of it and then pop a backbeat whenever I feel it necessary, you know? If I played the drums right now, it probably wouldn't translate on Zoom very well, but I think you guys know what I mean. So then it caught on right away, man. Everybody was like, yo. And pretty soon other drummers started doing it like all over the place. And another guy with the Tower of Power, great drummer, David Garibaldi. We never even heard each other. And one night I went into the On Broadway and heard him play, and I thought, this guy is kind of thinking like me. And then he came and heard me play with Paul, and he went, hey, you're kind of thinking like me, but we're really close friends, me and David. We never heard each other play because I was in the jazz circles, and he was in this one band for forever. And so it caught on, and it really, now some of the cats that I played with couldn't find the one, you know, because by now we had really, me and Paul had turned it morphed into this whole other thing that instead of having 2-bar phrases, it was like 100,000 miles long. Just, it could go on until you're done, you know, and so there was a little bit of that, but most of the guys I play with are very fortunate for me, are very high level guys, and they translated it pretty quick. If at first they had a problem, they figured it out. And a lot of the guys around Oakland just got like, there was another great drummer there, Gaylord Birch. He came out me doing it, you know, and he came over to my house and said, show me what you're doing. And he could do it. As soon as he saw me do it, he just did it. I'm like, oh, get out of my house. Don't come back.
I made an observation about Paul and Michael. You know, in order to do what they did, you know, there are groups that play. You know, guys get together, they play together. But then there are guys that get together and live together and think and breathe together, and they learn each other's soul. Much like the African drummer who plays in a group. You play in a group, the group gets its own personality. It develops into a certain sound. Why does that happen? Because if this happens, if the musicians get together and they bond spiritually, mentally, physically, and musically, then something magical happens. You get this communication thing going on. Like I play bata, I play drums with spiritual drums. And when you play the rhythms, you could play the rhythms, but they're just rhythms until you realize that they're saying something. And then that you together, unless you do it a certain way and you feel and you can see where to go. You're like you're in space with these guys, and they're like stars and planets and asteroids, but you never bump into them.
Yeah.
You go in between them. You interface with them in a way that is so magical. There's no rabbi or Muslim priest or anyone that can fit inside that without being close to God. So we're not. I often say during our shows, we're not really musicians. We're physicians. We're doctors. We cure people. We time travel. Y'all don't know what time travel is. You're trying to get there in the spaceship. We go there every night on this bandstand.
I love it. Oh my God.
I'm not bullshit.
The last Headhunters gig that we played was at San Francisco Jazz. We did 2 or 3 nights. And
all the shows were sold out, Mike.
Yeah, that's true. And man, it seemed like the Headhunters, I've been in the band a long time. It seemed like they just went into another dimension, man, to where everything was cool. It was beyond everything was cool. It was like what Bill said. It was like we were out in the universe, man, and I don't know what was going on technically. I don't even know any of that. I really don't. was just it. I know that it was pure joy, and I thought, man, I can play with Bill like the way I used to play with Paul, because we in 100 billion hours of flight time together. We travel the world together. So I don't even know what Bill's playing. I don't need to know what the pattern or what I can lock with him like in any band, not just the Headhunters. If he's there, I can lock with him in any band. I don't care what. It's just, you play with a guy that much. And now we have these beautiful guys with us. We have Big Chief Donald Harrison. It don't get no better than that. I mean, please. And Chris Severin, a killing bass player, man. Chris is like my new Paul.
Hey.
And we got Kyle Roussel, who's great young cat, man. And so we have the personalities that gel, and we have the musicians that gel. And Bill's free. He just comes up with stuff that I've never heard him do before. And I'm down, man.
We got to talk about a couple other guys that graced that record. One of them is a guy named Fode Sissoko.
Oh.
Tell us about him.
Fode plays the instrument. I got one behind me that he plays. He plays this. He plays the chord. This one, the bridge is down right now. I have to pull the bridge up. But it has 21 strings on it. But he's a master at this. And he starts off this tune called Congo Square. And Michael, we were in a place called Nazaire, France, and we were recording. We got this wonderful gig. It was kind of cool because this guy that owned the studio, he said, "Man, I'd like you guys to do a gig, but I'd like to make a very unusual kind of arrangement." We said, "Well, what's that?" He said, "Well, look, I got a studio, and y'all can have the studio for a week. I got a great engineer. I got rooms in the studio building where you can stay. I got a kitchen. We'll have a cook come in and cook for you, and you can just stay in the kitchen. And then I got a boat." I said, "You have a what?" He said, "Yeah, I got a boat across the street. So if y'all would come and do one concert, I'll give you all of that." So we went to the studio and we recorded with Reggie Washington, Donald Harrison, and a few other people. And so that album, and also Jerry Z from New York, organ player. So we had these guys that have been around us in various situations that played with us in various situations that were a part of the record. So some of these tracks we recorded damn near 10 years ago. But it's never old. It's never old. But there's one of these tunes that Michael and I went in the studio and we said, well, let's just play and record it. Let's not talk about it. Let's not do shit. Just play. You play, I play, and whatever happens, happens. And we took those tracks, and I took the track from what Michael did and took everything, my shit. I took my shit. I was just listening to him. I said, wow, listen to that. It was like a celestial orchestration that I could sit to and put my parts to it. And then we built it from scratch like that. And that's Congo Square. Michael played some shit and we built off of that. And then some of the shit like Vespiricon, that came via Michael and Jerry Z, but they're in New York, and Michael said, "Man, I got this funky ass dude, man. You gotta hear it." So then we just groove like that. It's about, you know what? If it ain't fun, I'm not doing it.
At this point, yes, sir.
Right on. That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
So that's a wonderful record, man. It's we put in there Ashland Parker's on it, who is I'm in a band called the Trumpet Mafia. If you saw the back of my jacket, you'd see it say Trumpet Mafia.
You're in the Trumpet Mafia, all right.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'm in the Trumpet Mafia. See the little thing right there?
Yay, there we go.
Yeah, so we got jackets and stuff. Ashland is a really cool dude, but this guy I played with Freddie Hubbard, so did Michael. I played with Eddie Henderson. Michael just finished a recording with Eddie. I worked with a lot of great players. John Faddis, you probably never heard of him. John Faddis could play. could play higher than dogs could hear. So,
True.
we played Dizzy, Miles, Ella.
He's a Bay Area. He's from Pleasant Hill, bro.
Yeah, we play with the people, and we, we're now Cardinals.
Indeed.
You know what I'm saying? In a sense, now we're in the elite group, and unfortunately, as we die, we become more valuable. Unfortunately.
I'm not dying. I'm gonna miss you cats, man. It's gonna be a drag.
I'm gonna be right there, Michael. I'm gonna be right there with you. I ain't going nowhere either.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, cool. Well, then we could, work on some new music, man.
But we got to do Philly.
Hey,
we got to do Philly, and then we go back to Philly, and we got to do Philly again.
And then we got to do Philly. And then we got to go to Chris's Steakhouse. Now we're playing the Brooklyn, Mike Boone, and what's his son's name? That great young drummer,
Mickey.
Woo! Philly, Jack. And all my idols are from Philly. Jimmy Heath. I used to read about these cats constantly. The Heath brothers, man. Coltrane, Philly Joe, Mickey Roker. I think, Tootie, bro.
Yeah, then you got to talk about their son.
Thing practically, I have stitches up here, so when I smile it hurts. I had a tooth pulled. Oh my God. But Philly, man, the Philly dog. Come on, man.
The Philly
Smoking Joe.
The Philly cheesesteak.
Come on in, guys. We'll all get some of them. Absolutely.
Hey, come on now.
Martino, Jack.
Absolutely. And a little bit far away, but not too far. But Jimmy Smith, we got to give Jimmy Smith his props.
Forgot about Jimmy Smith, man, back there with Trey.
Hey,
what about Joey D? Is he Philly cat, Joey D?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Right. Do you know how many times the Headhunters travel to Philly to play?
You get right into my next question. Any memories about the Hunters in Philadelphia that you can share?
There's always that. I got one. There's a bass player that calls himself Harvey S., great jazz bass player in New York. So with the first tour that I did with Herbie Hancock, we were not called the Headhunters, and they couldn't afford to take Bill Summers. So I went out with no percussionist, and the record had a percussionist on it. So it was a little weird. But my first gig with Hancock was at the Bijou Theater.
Yay.
So like I had 103 temperature. I was sick as a dog, man. And Harvey and some cats were playing opposite us. And I don't know who the rest of these guys were. I'm sure I know them, but I don't know who they were now. But anyway, so we did the show. I mean, I was sick as a dog, but I do remember we played our butts off, and I was trying to play some of Harvey Mason's parts and some of Bill's parts. I mean, God, with a trap set, I was, juggling. And so when I got years later, I show up years later, 1990 something, I show up on a gig with Harvey S. And he's like, yo, hey, Mike, man. I'm like, hey, Harvey, man, I've been wanting to play with you. And he says, oh, yeah? Well, listen, MF, you dissed me at the Bijou 25 years ago with Herbie Hancock. I said I did, but yeah, you acted all,
And you know what? Michael said something really important. He said, the first tour he did with Herbie, they couldn't afford to take me on it.
Wasn't that the truth?
Yeah, but it happened a couple of times. When we finished the first album, Harvey Mason was the drummer, and we were doing some touring. Michael came in because Harvey wasn't going on the road.
Right.
Paul Jackson said, I got the perfect guy. And it happened to be Mike Clark. And he was right. A lot of black guys hated him for it.
Yeah, I sort of caught a few from it.
Wow. You know what I'm saying? But let me say this. He said something very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I often tell people this, and it's an education for people. The person that does what I do, I play hand drums. I play African hand drums, Cuban, Brazilian, stuff that's in that area. And I play horns. I play shit, but that's been my forte, has been percussion. And during that period, and even still to today, people who do what I do aren't appreciated. So the reason that I didn't go on a tour, and Michael said it was financial. So I'm the N-word of the music industry. I'm the last one hired, and I'm the first one fired. You know, and there are very few people, there are very few musicians who do what I do that have ever had a recording contract. You couldn't name me three people that play hand drums in the last 75 years.
Maybe Ayrton?
Yeah, but he's from Brazil.
Oh, you're talking about
people that were born here in America that play hand drums that have had a record deal. There's very few, maybe 3 or 4, not very many.
Yeah.
So there's something that historically needs to be dealt with. You know, this is it started with slavery. It started with Black people being brought over here as prisoners. I don't call them slaves; they were prisoners. Yes, so, you know, that's part of it. Disrespect for our spiritual hand drumming. You know, for what we created. We created what is now jazz and what is now R&B and the Negro spirituals. If you know your history, if you go back far enough and you do your homework, you'll find out that all of this, you know, I won't say every beat that comes from, but the concept of a trap set is this: it's an African drum ensemble minus multiple people, because in Congo Square, when they shut that down, it was the last vestiges of people coming together as a group and playing drums together. So the drummer had to start playing the bass drum. He used the tenor drum for this, or the toms, to play support rhythms. He used the shaker became the hi-hat and the tambourine. That's what happened. And that's just literally historically correct. That is what happened.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's what happened. And therefore, if you're in the neo-Nazi group and you play in a trap set like we play them, or like Michael does, it's an African invention. You know, so, you know.
Drumming itself.
Well, I mean, that's the oldest remains of man are known to come from that era of the world. It's not a racial thing. It's a factual thing. It has nothing to do with race. Let's not deal with that. I tend not to want to deal with race because it gets people in trouble. But facts are facts. Right. The brothers started with Black B.
Right on.
When Duke Ellington and Count Basie were walking the streets, Benny Goodman was the king of swing. When Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry were walking the streets, Elvis Presley was the king of rock and roll.
Absolutely.
I ain't going for it. It ain't got shit to do with race. It's facts. Hey, man, come on.
Right. You're A100.
Yeah, come on, man. That ain't got shit to do with race or the civil rights movement. Look, lies are lies.
Indeed.
Well, it's like the book banning in Florida and Texas. You know, we're here to tell the truth, man. Whatever it is. I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
There's no use trying to pretend it ain't, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we're good though. Look at me and Mike. Me and Mike been together. We ebony and ivory in the flesh.
Well,
I mean, you know, I've been with Mike. I remember being with Michael in Texas. Michael's wife was black as the ace of spades. And boy, did we have to go through hell sometime in the South. It was woo. He come back to the hotel like, Bill, man, I want to kill this man. I said, man, Michael, what happened? Oh, man, we were out there. They started throwing shit at us. And, you know, you go through these things and you find out what the planet is really about.
Right. And who your friends are. And again, seeing and hearing you all at such a young age, I learned what it was really about. So again, thank you both for my education. And I want to let folks know again, the Headhunters will be in Philadelphia, February 11th. The new record is Speakers in the House. I want to ask one more question. I want to be respectful of time. I've just enjoyed this. I'm a complete fan guy with you guys. This has been just a dream come true. But I think about young musicians, and I think about you all, with Hancock and others. You all had to show him how to really play the funk, which was
yeah,
the new.
he ain't a funketeer, that's for sure.
Exactly. Like, how earlier when he was with Miles, he and Tony and Ron had to bring Miles to their way of playing. But there's some musician listening to us right now, and they get a gig with their idol or someone who they have in high esteem, and they're trying to find a way to push those nerves down to do the job. How did you guys get Mr. Hancock and say, hey, man, it's this way. Now let's go forward?
Well, it wasn't, Michael could probably answer that too, but there wasn't a yin and there wasn't like a pull and shove kind of situation. Mr. Hancock is intelligent. He was intelligent enough to know to let us take care of what we did.
Right.
He was that smart, and he
Right
stayed out the way. And
he learned that from Miles. I talked to him a little bit about this, but he hired guys. Once he got where you were coming from, then he allowed you to do your thing because he knew that's what you do the best, and he tried to get the best out of the cats. But also, I gotta say, he was a genius guy, in my humble, because he would be playing, and he, like a robot, he doesn't play like a robot. I don't mean mechanical, but like some kind of a computer. He could track every one of us. He could hear he heard the whole picture, and he knew just what you were doing. If somebody went a little too this way or that way, or even if he did, he knew it right away. And he was just like this brain that just knew what time it was. And you get that off of him, to where now when I play with guys, I never don't hear everything. I don't just hear me or the main soloist. I can hear the whole thing. I got that from him. I was kind of going in that direction anyway, because I dug that that's what him and Tony and Ron and those guys were doing. But when I really experienced it, like in real time, I like, man, this dude, because I would do little things sometimes, and he'd be like, I'm like, oh, this dude, he's peeping it, man. He's hearing the inside of the thing,
Another thing about Herbie was, now you're looking at a musician, he's beyond musicianship, we played, man. One thing I do know, he knew what unity was, because when we would play, man, it was a spiritual. Every night we prayed 3, 4, 5. We prayed 2, 3 hours before the show, and even if I wasn't a Buddhist, I was there with him. We Nam Myoho Renge Kyo to the ground. We got.
You know what, bro? You ever see the picture? Yeah, I'm sorry, Bill. You ever see that picture of Eric Dolphy where he's standing sideways like this? I think he's got a bass clarinet, and there's a hurricane coming towards him, and his hair is blowing behind him. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen that picture. It's on the album.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's an old picture. Well, man, Herbie would get on certain nights. All of us would get so energized that you put your full weight, full energy. I'm talking nothing is left on the table. Nothing. It's like being there with Sugar Ray or Ali, man. It's on, Jack. It's on in a way that I've never heard it like that since. And it would be like, I was going to say brutal, but it was fantastic. It could be brutal. All kind of shit happened. Anyway, like, like, I just happened at one point where it was way out there in the cosmos, and man, everything counted. Everything everybody was doing was so important, and it was just like we're all building this gorgeous thing. I just happened to open my eyes, and I saw Hancock's hair blowing with the tornado. I'm like, am I seeing this? Am I seeing?
Yeah, look, before look, let's talk about let's talk about one crazy ass moment. You won't believe this. I'm gonna share something with the Philly audience.
Please.
That's never been told ever on radio, television, or outer space about the Hancock experience. Herbie is a guy that wants to step into the abyss. The Headhunters was where you just fuck it. I'm gonna jump in. I'm just going to jump in and do it, and the hell with what people say. I'm just going to do it. And so one day Herbie decided, this was on the R&B level, he decided he wanted to sing. Now this was a mistake, okay? He decided he wanted to be Frank Sinatra, okay, or whatever that is, whatever, Stevie, Sting, I don't know what motivated, but he's the guy that will not take no for an answer. So he got this machine, this device called a vocoder.
Mm-hmm.
We did an album called Sunlight.
Yes.
Please Don't Fail Me Now was another one.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get to Europe, and we do the first set is like regular, we're gonna do the regular stuff, actual proof, this, that, some things that people are used to. Now, second set comes, Herbie's gonna sing. He's gonna answer, and he comes on, I thought it was you. And he has this little device he's singing into, and it sounds mechanical, sounds almost like auto-tune. But way back in the day, we're talking about way back in the day. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I'm doing like this. And why am I doing this? Because I'm dodging apples and oranges and lettuce and tomatoes. It was all directed at Herbie, but everywhere we went in Europe, from London, we went to France, and I think the English people called up the French government and said, look, go grocery shopping, get some apples and oranges and some lettuce and tomatoes, and go to Herbie's show. And every night across the entire continent of Europe, the same thing happened every night. Every night. Now you can't imagine someone actually being so angry at an artist where they're throwing fruit at them and vegetables and soup, Mm-hmm. But such as Mr. Hancock, and he was not backing down. He was not bowing down. He went on and on and on and on. And I asked him, said, Herbie, you know football? He said, yeah. I said, well, when the quarterback gets up to the line and he sees the defense is not lined up like he expected, he calls an audible. Mm. He related to that. And I think we changed the show up and we kind of mixed it up more, and we got through it. But every night was not peaches and cream. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess the B part of that question, thank you for sharing that with us, Mr. Summers.
Nobody's ever heard the story.
I never had. That's plain new. But that very album I think about things like, Palm Grease and Spank a Lee. For people in my generation and a little bit younger, they encountered you guys first through sampling, good and bad. Jay Dilla used I Thought It Was You for Slum Village, and NWA used Mike Clark's beats for Straight Outta Compton, et cetera, et cetera. Pros
you still haven't gotten paid for that.
That's where I was going. Please illuminate.
Hey man, I'm going to ask you, can you identify in Straight Outta Compton, that specific sample? Can you do it?
I probably can. It's been years since I've heard it.
Man, look, you can get paid. Do it.
Well, they pulled it, Bill. They pulled it. I think they pulled it because they sent Bill and I a contract, and then we agreed actually to the terms, and then they took it out. But in Straight Outta Compton, you see him, the guy that plays Dre, you see his buddy, whichever guy that was supposed to be. I can't remember the movie that well. I only saw it once, but I saw them. He handed him the Survival of the Fittest, which is our record album cover. That's where they were going to go into.
Was it God Make Me Funky?
Funky.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me and Michael.
They cut it. And that's why we didn't even get.
They cut it out of the movie.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, well, they still using our name.
Well, they used it to make the millions of records that they sold from Jump.
Mm.
Well, I'm just saying, if you look at it, we're credited, okay?
In the movie?
We're credited, yes. Well, we're credited with having a sample in there. It doesn't. I think it's still in there. I think it's there.
Okay. Oh,
But we need our friend here to identify it, and then we can go from there.
Indeed. Indeed.
You know, because I would love to know, where's it at what minute and what second in there in the film, where is it? Because I can't find it.
Gotcha.
I don't know where it is. And you know, you have to really listen to everything, because it might be way in the back. It doesn't necessarily.
Well, that's a tough one when they do that. Yes, sir.
Right.
You know, so, anyway, so much.
Folks, again, we want to thank you for watching this. And I want to thank personally Bill Summers and Mike Clark. I'm going to get you gentlemen to stay on the line just really quickly, but I want to say it's been a pleasure getting a chance to speak with you about your legacy, your new album, Speakers in the House. And I'm going to see you in Philly in February.
Thank you.
Everybody come on out. We're going to throw that.
I would say, you know, there's a lot of jam band bands that I've even played in that kind of borrow, if you will, from the Headhunters. So come out and see the OGs do it, man. You know what I mean? Might as well see how the cats did it on the reel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.